Some years ago, I was in a meeting room up in the north of England. There wasn't many people in the room. I looked around, there was a box there with a slot on it. I thought that was interesting. It said preaching ideas. I thought that was interesting. I picked it up, had it looked, empty. I thought, oh, it's empty. There was a pile of cards and a pen. I thought, nobody's watching. So I put G-O, go. I put it in the box, walked away. I don't know what happened after that. That's what Jesus said, right? All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go. Therefore, go. Make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you, and baptizing them. And lo, I am with you to the end of the age. That's not a suggestion, brothers and sisters. It's not a suggestion from our Lord. That is his final command to us. That's the mission that he has given us, to go and preach the word and make disciples. And that's why I put it in the box. So that's the message I'm going to try to build on based on this amazing foundation that's been built. But this I'm going to do in a very much more practical way. So we're going to just look at some of the practical aspects of doing that. And what I want to do, my aim is to share with you how amazing this work is. To actually go out into the streets, literally the streets, and meet real people in real lives and experience with them sharing your faith is a powerful, enriching experience. It's not something to be afraid of. Jesus said, all power in heaven and earth has been given to me, therefore go. And I'm with you, right? Listen to him. He is with you in that work. So, this is what I'm hoping to achieve and share with you. We're going to look first at some of the basic principles of what it means to actually meet somebody and engage with them on a practical level. Then we're going to do a little bit of practice, just warn you ahead of time, a little bit of practice about some of those things. And then, with Ruth's help in the third part, I'm just going to bring my Bible table out here and show you the tools of the trade and what works and what doesn't when you're actually out there from experience. That's the plan. So very roughly, as has been mentioned already, this is my home base. I was baptized just here underneath. This is my feet, in case you didn't know. And so from here, we're out into the big wide world. I'd done preaching since I was a boy. Many of you know my father. I was in Scotland, but that's exactly as Kitson just mentioned. I wasn't very old, top of Scotland with my dad. Those days it was all pole boarding, sandwich boards, knocking on doors, all that stuff, singing under the lampposts. So from an early age, I've been out there on the streets with my dad and others. And so from there, several quick things to mention. I was trying to think the other day how we got into doing Bible tables on the street, and it's something like this. So we were at Ealing Ecclesia, and we were doing these special efforts, and I sat with my friend Mike Thompson, said, what we're going to do? I said, tell you what, let's get a table and put it on the street, which is quite a radical idea at that time, way back, unbelievably. So we did it, and we did that. That was the first experience. The second experience was 1991 in the Czech Republic. We'd taken a minibus full of 25 people there, and we sat outside the hotel on the morning of the campaign leader, some of you may know Steve Cox, was sitting there with me in the front of the cab, and I said, okay, Steve, we've come here, what are we going to do? I don't know, he said, what's the plan? I said, you haven't got a plan? He said, no, I haven't got a plan, what are you going to do? I said, we've got 20. He said, okay. So we bought three tables, we just went and bought 3 tables from a DIY shop, put some leaflets on them, put the Czech word for free on the front, and we came out with 600 names and addresses. So that was another example. And from there, since that time, Ruth and I have been on the street with others, with Bible tables. I think probably we're thinking 15 years, probably every year. You can give about 20 Bibles a day, it's about 100 Bibles in a week, and it's been an amazing, amazing experience. So I just want to share that with you briefly. So we're going to go through essentially the mechanics of communication. It's a very practical idea. I want to carry on enthusing you with the idea of meeting people. So this is about people. It's about you and people. And it's something really magic that happens on the street. Jesus said to Peter, I'm going to make you fishers of men. fishers of men. And that's what you're doing on the street. That's exactly right. You put your little table on there, you sit there on a bench nearby and see what comes along. That's exactly how it works. You're fishers of men. You have to be patient. If you're a fisherman like me, you're used to it. You have to be patient, and then it will happen. So there you are. I was standing in the rain, in the drizzle actually. I just kept my Bibles there right in the dry. Nothing happening for 2 hours. I turned around, there's a boy there with a dog on a lead. Yeah, so what about the Crusades then? Oh, that's great. That's what it's about, being on the street. You just literally, any moment, you're confronted and meet amazing people with these experiences. So fishers of men is what you're doing. And so, there's your life, brothers and sisters, and there's this stranger's life, right? And on the street, you meet this stranger for a little time. You share something really deep, often really profound, and then they've gone. And that's it, and you don't know what happened. Hopefully you'll be able to give them a Bible, and you sent them off into the world, and you never know. And I often think, I wonder what happened to them all. I wonder what happened to them all. I had one morning, I was standing in the mist, actually, it was cold, and a young man came up, nobody else around, a young man came up and said, excuse me, he said, this Bible, he said, what's it about? Do I need it? Can it help me? I said, it certainly can. And I sent him on his way with the Bible, and as I watched him going away, I thought, there you are, that's what Kitson said. My word never goes away void, as he went away with the Bible under his arm. I thought, that's it. Half an hour later, another young man came along, and I had the repeat experience of Sally. So there you are, that's an example. Things happen spontaneously on the street which are just magic, and you can just experience that. And you never know what happened. Although in one case I did know what happened, because I got a call from Cambridge, Ecclesia, were trying to contact me. I said what it was. They said, this person is trying to contact you. His name is George Powell. He's from Argentina. And he contacted me. He said, I needed to find you. I desperately wanted to find you again. Jeremy Pears, he said. I met you in Cambridge Market, and that Bible you gave me changed my life and my family's life. And I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to tell you that I thank God. I thank God for every day you're on this planet. Right? So that one did come home, right? But I gave 100 Bibles out that week, and I don't remember him, right? Very well. So that's an example of what you never know, what impact, what effect you can have is. So let's talk about communication then. What is communication? Why do we need to communicate more? I'm just going to quite quickly now. So it's about communication, right? So that's what I was trying to emphasize just then. So it's not just about you talking to an object. That object is a person, a real person with a real life, with a real need, right? It's a communication. So yes, for sure, it's things you share, but it's also all about them and what they're sharing with you. And this communication that we're going to talk about. And so that is the skill that we're going to focus on together. Why do we need to communicate better? Why do we need to make sure? Because otherwise there's no point, is there? You're not there just to brush up your ego because you just met and you count the number of people and walk away. That's not why you're doing this. You're doing this because you want to go fight the battles that Kitson talked about. You want to take the mission of Christ to go out there and to really give and show the love of Jesus to those who come to you. So let's look at the basics and mechanics of conversations then. Let's start with rapport. So essentially it all starts with rapport. What we're trying to do in practice when we're talking to people is make ourselves approachable, right? That's the whole thing. You need to be approachable, obviously. How do you do that? So we need to think carefully about how approachable are we? Right? Take a look at this photograph, right? Which one of these people would you rather talk to, right? For example, yeah? And so you need to be approachable, and the first impressions are very important. So think about what you wear when you're preaching on the street. Think about the fact that when you are standing on the street, everyone can see you, even those people over there on the bus stop, right? So if you're standing there all miserable or whatever, they can see that and they're watching because they're thinking, shall I go and talk to him or not? Yeah, shall I go and talk to them or not? And they're making that decision all the time, and it depends on first impressions, right? So think carefully about that. Think about what you're wearing and how you are. Are you happy? Are you a happy person on the street? Because I'm going to talk to you if If you're a miserable person, what's the point of that? They're not going to give them anything, right? So you need to be understanding. You're on display, essentially, when you're doing street work all the time. Whether you like it or not, you put yourself in that place. It means that you've got to think about that and think about how you're, whether you are approachable or not. And sometimes it takes days. So you put one of these tables in the same place in a town. After 2 or 3 days, some people finally come to speak to you. They've been thinking about it. They've been seeing you every day. They come to work, perhaps in the shops, and eventually they'll come and see you. So it takes a long time for some people to do that. Let's look at some of these things. First impressions then are critical, and that's important for you and for them. Nonverbal signals, like I've said. Are you smiling? Are you happy? Are you standing there? What are they seeing? What are they experiencing? Are you smiling? Right, these are all important, of course. First words are not important. It's true, it doesn't matter what you say. Often you just comment on the weather, or did you see that? Whatever. It doesn't much matter what you say, honestly, in any conversation. And it's true across the board for anything you're doing. It doesn't matter what you say, actually. Once you've broken that ice, once you've said something, then they can have a really important conversation, usually. So this is what we're going to practice in a minute, is the couple of principles, which is, you can see it happening in the background of that picture. When you talk to somebody, you mirror them, don't you? You mirror them, right? Watch, you're doing exactly the opposite of what they're doing. Whether you like it or not, it's a natural reaction, yeah? You always mirror them, and that's just a human quality, right? Why do you do that? Because you're making it easier, you're making it approachable, you're making them feel relaxed. So mirroring is, you'll do it anyway naturally, but try to do it more and try to think about how you're approaching that. And then you have to think, what you're really saying is this person like me? And frequently the answer is no. They are nothing like you at all. And that's the biggest challenge of preaching. And you will meet very many different people from many different people, and most of them will not be like you. And that will be something that you have to learn. We have to all learn together. I first learnt this lesson when I was in Scotland, going down a street with a load of bills with an older brother, and I could see a house at the end on the hedge, and it was all smashed up, and there was a motorbike in the front lawn. I thought, well, we're not going in there, obviously. And we got closer and closer, and my heart started bouncing. We're not going in there, obviously. And when we got there, he pushed the dig open, strode up the path. I'm going, oh no. Followed him with my leaflets. The door was flung open by a Hell's Angel in full regalia. Yeah, what do you want? And this brother said, we've come to talk about the Bible. Really, he said? What do you think about Ezekiel 37? I've just been reading it here, and it says in verse 6. Honestly, that is exactly true. And I learned that lesson, right? So don't read a book by its cover, for sure. And you're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to get through a lot of those kind of things. And you're going to meet lots of very different kinds of people when you're out there. And we're going to do some active listening in a minute. Some of you sure have heard about this active listening, right? So it's not about talking. At first, it's not about talking. It's about listening. That's your first job, is listening to the person that you have encountered or has come to speak to you. And that's what this is about, and we'll practice that. It's about carefully hearing what they're saying to you. It's about putting a spotlight on them and trying to let them open up their life to you on the street. It's easier than it sounds, and some people just come to you with it. But you're just allowing that, and you're doing that by listening carefully to what they're saying. When people have conversations, they drop words in. They drop random words in, and they're trying to subconsciously give you clues as to what they really want to talk about. So you have to listen for that and say, really? Malta? Oh, I've been there. Yes. Oh, fantastic. And Seventh-day Adventists? Yeah, I had. Yeah. Why was that then? Oh, you had. And so you're picking up on these words and answering open questions and trying to use what they're telling you through this questioning to actively listen to what they're saying until you really understood what it is and what the reason is this person has come to you, because for sure it may well not be the first thing they say to you. It's probably something much deeper. So we're going to practice active listening. Let's talk a little bit about need then. I want someone to come and stand here who's not shy. Just come and stand here, anybody who's not shy. Just come and stand here who's not shy. Okay. Not shy. Turn around. Just turn around. Yeah. Okay, so this is what happens, right? So this is what we've got to think about. I'm meeting this person, I don't know who he is, right? So it's a question really of sort of looking at, trying to work out in your head roughly what clues there are about this person, because you want to sort of make sure that what you're saying is appropriate and that your approach is right? There's a lot of things that can go, astray here. So you have to look carefully. And I'm not going to say any comments about you particularly, but you can look. You can think carefully, right? So I'm sure many of you have studied this in other ways, but from people's shoes, you can tell an awful lot of someone about their shoes. Really, you can.
What does it say?
Your shoes, well, they're quite sophisticated. You didn't put your trainers on. You thought about it, but you didn't put your posh shoes on. So, you're kind of in the middle. Right? So you can do that. You look on other people's shoes. And things like that, the way that do they care about themselves or whatever? Do they look as if they, come from a prior age? Do they an aging rock star or something? You kind of, how do they approach that?
Rock star.
So that's the thing. What you're really looking for is signs that there's things not right with this person. I'm not talking about you. You can sit down there. You can sit down there. But people will come to you. They will come to you in distress or in a depressed state or bruised or something like that. And they're coming to you because they are in desperate need. And they see you standing on the street as someone representing religion and faith that they see as a light for their darkness. And honestly, they will come to you. And so you need to look carefully and understand what's happening and what that person's state of mind is so that you can have the appropriate response. So think about the need then of this person that God has given you. God has given you some precious seconds or hopefully more with these people. What is this person's need? Where are they coming from? What has their journey been? How can I bring this person to Jesus? Who might you be talking to? You might need to share stuff, so you might need to draw on your experience. I think what the brother said was, don't try to think too much about what you're going to say. It will come to you. It will come to you. Come from your experience. It will come from your own. We can all do this. It's not something you have to really necessarily train for. And share your experience, share your life in that moment. So that's the important thing, is to try to focus on that. And that's part of what we say with active listening. They call it peeling the onion. So you're peeling the onion here, really. You're starting with a basic conversation. Have you always had a Christian faith, or how did you come to Christian faith, or were your parents, family Christian, something like that. And off you go, and you peel the onion. Peel the onion until you get to the real person and the real need that you're looking for. And then you can start to think about how you can bring Jesus. So very briefly, I'm going to just talk through maybe some of the kinds of people that will come and some of the kinds of things that might be appropriate or not. Most people who think this is very difficult would have in their mind a picture of someone who's aggressive and challenging and difficult, and you're going to have this really bad experience. So I could say, and I think Ruth can also testify, hardly ever do we experience that these days. You will experience one or two. The young atheist probably will be one of those who will come to you, and he will want to make his point that he's just been reading on YouTube from the latest whatever, all about the universe and how it's not logical and why God can't possibly exist, and how he will probably try to challenge you. And then we just need to point to the resurrection, for example, as the proof that we could explore together, things like that. But very rarely do you get this. One time it's so rare I can only remember one or two stories. There's a lady came to me. She was fiery about Christadelphians to the devil. She'd obviously done her research. I had half an hour with her, and that's important. So when it does happen, then this is something they'll teach you at work. I'm sure if you're in the business, you need to let them steam, right? You need to let them go. Let them say what they've come to say, and you're giving them confirmation. Really, that's not good. Wow. And that what you're saying is, oh, really? and you just kind of let them go. Until finally, after 10 minutes, they've said everything that they're going to say, and they've had to say, and then you can start to help them and to show them love and the right way. So that's just a little tip to do, is if you do end up in that situation, is do that. And of course, all the time, you're using open body language, right? Do not preach like this, right? This is just not what you do, because you're putting barriers and you're pointing. You never do that. So you be careful what you do with your hands. Always leave your body open and receptive and loving, right? Don't do that with your hands. And that's important. Don't make any barriers, make it them. And eventually this lady, by the way, I ended up crying with her about finding God on the bench. So that's how that can end. So this is a practical thing. Now, you get the atheist. Quite a lot of the time, because we're doing free Bibles here, you will get Christians come, and they will come, and often they'll be happy that you've doing this, and they'll congratulate you for doing that. And so you can deal with that in your own way. Often I can have an interesting conversation about faith, but generally speaking, I found it's not profitable to start saying, oh well, yeah, but we don't believe in Trinity or something like that. It's just really not going to go anywhere, and there are plenty of people out there who really need you, and often it's much more productive to just send them on their way. Frankly, I found that once you start crossing that line, you can have interesting conversations, but I wonder how productive it is, really. So one thing I wanted to emphasize here is the mission of Jesus was to fight evil, right? So when the disciples came back from their mission, he said, you're treading on snakes and scorpions, right? What was he referring to? Back to Genesis, right? Our fight is fighting with the Lord against evil in different ways, in our own life, but in their life. And many people have been affected very badly by evil all around them. And they're wounded and broken, a lot of them, by this experience. And what they need is love, and they need to understand the gospel and how they can be saved through Jesus like that. And so you will meet people who have had really bad experiences or experiencing abuse, who are depressed, and who really just need love. They just need a lot of love. And that will be where you're preaching from your heart and not from your head. Much of the preaching is from your heart and not from your head. Jesus, in Isaiah 61, went out to bind up the brokenhearted. He went to comfort those who mourn. He went to release the prisoners from the darkness. That's your mission, actually. And so that is what you'll find yourself doing quite a lot of time. I used to worry about repentance, because I used to worry, how can it be? How can we preach the gospel, which is about repentance, in the modern world where right and wrong is all different and you're not allowed to tell anyone that they're doing anything wrong? How can we do that? And I used to worry about that a lot until I went on Shrewsbury campaign. And I was actually, this is often you find this the way, I was talking to the Lord about this whole thing at the time when this experience was happening. And I was billing, and that morning I'd been thinking about the Samaritan woman and the well for some reason. I met a lady, it was hot, I had a bottle in my hand, it was empty, she was fixing a bike. I said, I'm from the local church. She said, oh, shall I fill your bottle up for you? I said, thank you. So she went away, came back, filled the bottle, I said, thank you. And then the thought came into mind, I said, I was thinking about this morning, I said, Jesus, what he said to us is, he had an experience, he said, this water is the living life, this is my love, and thank you for doing that. She paused and she said, I can't reach him, I'm lost. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I came to Christianity years ago. I went to church and it all went badly wrong. And for years, I feel really guilty. I did really, really bad things when I was young. And I can't feel forgiven. I can't find Jesus. I've got a house full of Bibles, but I cannot reach him. So I was able to tell her about Jesus. I said, well, it's not your life that saves you. It's Jesus' life. Really? She said, yes, it's not your life. She said, that's amazing, she said. I never thought this would happen to me. So she had guilt in her life. Very much so. A man came to me not long afterwards with a piece of paper in his hand, and he said, I'm worried. I said, what? He said, I've just been in the graveyard thinking about judgment. I've written down all the verses in the Bible here about judgment. Is it true? So I was able to tell him, It's not your life. It's Jesus' life. And so on. So there are people out there, certainly I was convinced, whose lives are racked by guilt and conscience, and they cannot find and cannot get through to the love of Jesus. They don't understand the gospel. And so that's the kind of person that we can speak to there. What is the kind of person that you're looking for? I think this is what I should emphasize. What is the kind of person you're looking for? And it's probably the person who says to you, who at Christadelphian, what is your faith? Why is it different from others? To whom you can start to talk about how we tried to get back to the first century and tried to find the original faith and try to show them about the Bible, and then you can pick up the Bible off the table and explain to them how amazing this book is. That's probably the most profitable route, I would say, in all of these situations. And that experience is very powerful and happens a lot. And so I would say that's what you're looking for, is the person who is still searching. Often young people, and often surprisingly young people. We give the Bible to young people, young men often, who really do value it. And they take it and then they take it on their way. And it's such a really amazing experience to be able to give the Bible and sow that seed to young people who would never ever think about it, right? These Bible, they wouldn't go into a Christian bookshop and buy one. Their parents aren't Christians. How are they going to get the Bible? They've got these paperbacks here, which are not gold-leafed or whatever. They're just paperbacks, and they can put them in the bag, and off they go. I had 4 girls on the beach reading the Bible in Seaton, for example, for the first time. They're looking at it in great enthusiasm. You can never know, really, how this message can get to the different kind of people. So what you need to be thinking about then are these solutions. What you're going to be thinking about once you've understood who this person is and what their need is, and you've thought about through all these different things, you're working towards the solutions. Your conversation has matured, you've found out who they are, you're heading into, you've shared some things, you're giving them some potential thoughts about what might lead them to Jesus, and now we're thinking then, how are we going to get rid of, pitch that. That's right, that's the word I wanted. How are we going to pitch that? How are we going to package that and make sure that this conversation ends? You'll know when any conversation has a natural path, right? It starts, it has a middle, and it has an end, right? So when the person starts to lose their body language, they start to look at the wrist or look at their feet. If their feet, honestly, this is true, if their feet are pointing away, right, they want to leave. So think about that. Realize the conversation is coming to a natural end now. And so you're quickly thinking, well, okay, what do I need? I need to get something happening here. I need to give them something, point them some way, make some arrangement with them. And that's when you need all your bits, right? That's when you need the contact of the local ecclesia. That's when you need your contact card. That's when you need your leaflet about whatever's going on. And that's when you're trying to get them towards some kind of commitment. Often, we used to collect a lot of names and addresses. It's not so easy these days. But, you're trying to think about that. What's appropriate? The most appropriate thing would be an agreement with them that you'll meet them tomorrow in the local cafe, for example. Here's my phone number, right? If you've got the time to do that and the ability to do that, that would be great. So try to think about what's happening here and how's this going to go and what's the takeaway, how they're going to leave, and how do I close this conversation. And at this point, I want to emphasize, leap your expectations really low, right? Really low. It could just be they walk away and say, do you know what, I had an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed it with a Christadelphian. Yeah, I know one. I met one on the street. It was lovely. That's enough. It's enough for a start, right? You don't need more than that necessarily, because you planted the seed and God will grow the rest. So think about that. What to take away, and how do I close this conversation, and what do they walk away with? And often I say I have contact cards often, and you can give them, which I pre-fill in with my own contact details, for example, and you can give that to them and make some kind of agreement, or that they will come to some event or something like that. So that's the practical. Now, I just want you to have a go at this. So you've listened to me long enough. So the exercises, I'm going to give you 2 exercises. The first one, and it's about listening. It's about listening. It's about putting into practice what I've said. So I want you to get into pairs, preferably with someone you don't know. I know that's not easy here, But try to choose somebody you don't know very well then, right? Somebody you don't know very well. Sit in pairs, put your chair back to back so you can't see them. It's going to go for about 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, and one of you will lead, right? One of you will lead, and then the other will follow. So you just want to ask your open questions, whatever it might be. It could be just where do you live, or holiday, what holiday go on, or something like that, if you choose that. But it could be, how did you come to faith in Jesus? How did you, what's your journey? And what do you find most challenging about discipleship? Or some other open question. However you feel that you want to pursue that conversation, just choose the path depending on how you feel it's going. But in that conversation, the skills you're practicing are listening really carefully. You have to because you can't see them. Listen really carefully. And what you're listening for are those hook words that I mentioned. What are the hook words? What are they trying to tell you? And build on them. Build on the hook words. And then try if you can, with open questions to come to some kind of really interesting, really good conversation together. And then try to follow that conversation. And in the time I've given you, enjoy speaking to each other and get to know each other a bit better, right?